All right, welcome to this Q&A. Again, welcome to this Q&A. So I want to do a follow-up on a few questions that spoke about on Tuesday. One we didn't speak about, but one question was about some religious Jews, I don't know how religious they would be, but would say that it's better that a secular Jew is better than any righteous Gentile. So whatever, we knocked that idea out, saying that that's, wouldn't be true, especially, if a Jew didn't keep Shabbos or was intermarried or different things. So someone asked a follow-up question, what about a cardiac Jew? Right? What about a Jew at heart, as we would say? So Jew at heart is secular Jew, no difference. Right? We're not gonna make any distinction. Right? A secular Jew. Now again, some people could be doing worse things, some people not. Right? It depends. It depends, what they're doing. But again, I would say a secular Jew, no different. Right? A Jew at heart is the same thing, right? It'd be the same thing as a secular Jew, and it would be the same, same thing if they desecrate Shabbos, if they are intermarried, etc. So, that doesn't necessarily change anything. So that's one thing. Second thing, a little more detailed here, or a lot more detailed. And the question seems to be a discrepancy in Gemara and Kedushin 30a has a whole discussion about how many letters there are in the Torah. Right? And there seems to be a serious discrepancy for what we have, today. So I would have said, before knowing anything or remembering anything, I would have said, there are times words, this is what I partially said, is that there are words that sometimes either spelling-wise doesn't really matter. It doesn't necessarily change the meaning of the word. So spelling we're not necessarily worried about. Even if something, let's say, ended some places, they'll say it ends with a hey, or it ends with an ayin, or whatever. So you go according to the majority, of Torah scrolls, how we're gonna read it, or etc. So even with that, seemingly there's still going to be an issue, right? Why is it going to be an issue? There's going to be an issue because, with that amount of different, changes, or let's say you had it above, there was a vav for certain words, there's an O sound for certain words without a vav, right? Even so, to say that there's, 300 letter difference, 1,000 letter difference, 5,000 letter difference, that, that's pretty big. That's a pretty big discrepancy. So the Gemara just, flush it out here. The Gemara explains that that the early Chachamim, the early rabbis, were called sofer. Right? What does sofer mean? It means the scribe, those who count, because they were able to count all the letters of the Torah. So they used to say, and what the Gemara brings out, the letter vav of the word gicho in Leviticus chapter 11, verse 42. The vav there, they bring down that it's half the total numbers of the letters of the Sefer Torah. Right? In other words, if you look over there, again, Leviticus chapter 11, verse 42, there's a vav there in the word gachon. Gemochet vav nun. So that vav, they say, is half the total number of letters of a Torah scroll. Now, Rav Yosef over there asked, is that vav the last letter of the first half of the Torah? or the first letter of the second half? So Abai answered, okay, bring a Sefer Torah. Bring me a Torah scroll. Let's count. Right, let's count how many letters there are. Right, today it'd be very easy, right, to do, but back then, 1, 2, 3, you're gonna count all the letters. Right? So Abai says, very good. So let's have a counting party, right? Let's count how many. It was done by the rabbis in the past. Bring out a Sefer Torah, start counting. Okay. So Rav Yosef there explains that the rabbis were experts in chaseros, in yaseros, letters which either may be omitted or included without affecting the meaning of the text. Right? Meaning there are certain words, let's say, maybe spelled either with or without an aleph, a hey, a vav, a yud. Right? I mentioned a vav, but it could be with an aleph, a hey, a yud. What we're going to call supplementary letters. And they're written to aid the recognition of the vowels. Even though the letters aren't pronounced, only the vowel is pronounced. Very good. Now, comes along Rabbi Yosef and says, these type of things, already have been lost. We're not experts, right? We're no longer experts in this. So therefore, if we count, it's not going to be reliable, right? The count will not be reliable because the letter's missing. Again, sometimes you have an aleph missing, a hey missing, a vav missing, a yud missing, right? You can have all these different letters missing. So we're not experts. We're not experts over here. And therefore, the count's not going to be reliable, right? In order to determine the central letter of the Sefer Torah, right? That we're not going to be able to figure out. But the letter Vav in the word Gachon, right, is, again, they're not going to disagree here. That's considered the middle letter, right? The middle letter of the Torah. So, in that Vav is written bigger than other letters. But if you look and you count the letters of the Torah, you'll find the Vav of Gachon is what? Not the middle letter. So seemingly statements are true, it's not the middle letter. How many letters are there? 304,801, just in case anyone wants to know. That according at least to the count of review, Yaakov Auerbach of blessed memory, according to traditional listing at the end of Sefer Devarim, or at the end of the book of Deuteronomy, and the standard Mikras Gedolos of all the commentaries, right, in the standard Chumash, it's brought down at the end. How many letters are there? 304,805. Now, if you're going to go to Leviticus chapter, where is it here? Leviticus chapter 11, verse 42. So if you look over there, the Vav of Gachon is not the midpoint letter, right? What would be the midpoint letter? 152,403, right? That would be the midpoint letter. But really, the Vav of Gachon, if you really count, appears nearly 5,000 letters later. Letter number 157,336. This is a problem. This is a big problem. All right, you want to tell me a few letters off, 100 letters off. Okay, I can cut you some slack a little bit. You want to tell me it's 5,000 letters off. This is a problem. Now, even though Rabbi Yosef said, we're not experts in the identity of chaseros via serus, either adding a vav or taking away a vav, a hey, a yud, or an aleph. Now, even, I wanted to say on Tuesday, even with that amount of how many things you're lacking, you're not going to come up to 5,000. That's huge discrepancy. Huge discrepancy. Right? So, really, passed down throughout the generations, which is pretty amazing, that there are only 9 minor variations in how words are spelled. 9, right? We're not talking 5,000, right? 9. You got 9 variations. 9 variations over here. How words are spelled. So then the question is going to be, what in the world does it mean that the Vav of Gachon is the middle letter of the Sefer Torah? Right? We'll get to the discrepancy in the numbers. Right? But the Gemara seems to stay clear, and you got a big Vav written there, saying that it's the middle. It's the middle of the Sefer Torah. If you count all the letters, it's the middle of the entire book. Right? The entire Torah scroll. Right? But you got a 5,000 letter discrepancy over here. So what does it mean? So again, even if you want to tell me there are, different variances where they had a hey there or taken out or a vav or a yud, but there are only 9. There are only 9 differences. That's not going to explain 5,000. So Piskei Eliyahu, Rav Eliyahu Poisek, as he was known, says maybe the rabbis, the Sofrim, who counted the letters of the Sefer Torah, maybe they didn't mean exactly the Vav of Gachon is the middle of all the letters. What do they mean? I mean, that's seemingly what it says, right? What does it mean according to him? He says it's not many words in the Torah should be written with a Vav or a Yod. And yet the Torah admits it. Why does the Torah admit it? Exegetical purposes, right? How to learn it out. There's a Vav here, there's a Vav missing. Why is it missing? For exegesis. Or it adds letters when should have been written without them, right? So again, you're going according to grammar. So in the list of all the Vavs and the Yuds, which the Torah excludes or includes, right, for biblical exegesis, the Vav of Gachon is the middle of the list. Right? In other words, if you're going to tell me there's Vavs added, subtracted, whatever, that are there or not there for biblical exegesis, if you would look at all those cases, there's no discrepancy. Then you see the Vav of Gachon, and that in that place of the book of Leviticus is the middle. Right? But it should have been written without a Vav. That's going to be the case. It should not have been a Vav there. So then the question is, okay, if you're going to tell me that, according to Rabbi Yosef, said that Vav of Gachon, right, is the last letter of the first half of the list, or whether it's the first letter of the second half of the list, right? What's it going on? Is it going on the first part or the second part, or the beginning of the second part? Yeah, that's what he asks. So Rav Yosef explains, we're not experts in grammar over here to determine which words with the Vav and the Yud that are extra letters, or the actual words. They couldn't determine the letters. They couldn't determine which letters to count. Right? Because again, they're not experts. Right? That's one thing. All right, that would potentially answer up. There's another issue here. Right. I mean, it's an interesting question here. Right? What's the other issue? Right, another question arises, total number of letters in general. It comes on the Zohar, and it says according to Kabbalah and Shir Shirim, right, the Song of Songs, there are 600,000 letters. 600,000 letters. Why 600,000? Correspond to 600,000 souls of the 12 tribes of the Jewish people. Also, it's written that the soul of every Jew stems from one of the 600,000 letters in the Torah. Right? The name Yisrael. Can be viewed as an acronym. What's the acronym? Yesh, Shishim, Ribo, Oisios, Torah. Yud, right? Yesh, there are. Shlishim, Shin. Ribo, for the Reish. Oisios, Torah, meaning there are 60 myriads of the letters of the Torah from the word Yisrael. What does 60 myriads mean? 600,000. Very good. So if that's true, why according to Kabbalah it says 600,000 letters in the Torah? When our count, how many would we come up with? Half that. Right? In other words, according to Kabbalah, there's 600,000 letters. According to what the Gemara says, and what we know, there are over 300,000, less than half. Now, how did the Zohar count? Now, the Zohar's counting could also explain how this Vav of Gachon is the midpoint. Why? Because the number of letters before that vav may equal the number of letters which follow it when the letters are counted in a manner prescribed by the Zohar. Now, if you're counting according to the Zohar, you come up with a different number. So when Rav Yosef came along and said that his generation didn't have that expertise in either adding a vav or taking away a vav or a hey or an aleph or whatever, maybe he's telling you why. Because he's not able to duplicate the Zohar's method of counting. It's a different way of counting, right? Altogether. Because even if you're going to tell me Hebrew letters of the alphabet may be spelled with or without supplementary vavs or yuds, right? To aid in their pronunciation, for example, you have a base, may be spelled base, yud, tav, right? For house, or simply base tav. Vav may be spelled Vav Yud Vav, or simply Vav Vav, right, etc. So therefore, since we don't know how to spell many of the Torah's letters, prevents us from actually accurately counting how many letters precede or came after this Vav of Gachel, right? That's the second answer. Third answer comes from the Baal Tanya, Rav Shneur Zalman of Liadi, and he says that in order to count 600,000 letters, if you're going to tell me, according to Zohar, there's 600,000 letters, you got to identify each vowel that lacks a supplementary letter. Then you have to add that letter to the word. So, for example, maybe I could add an aleph or a hey after every patach. What the patach is either a line, right, or a kamat is like a T, right, for an os sound or an os sound, but it's not followed by an aleph or a hey, right? Therefore, vav may be added after every colon, right, which is an o sound, or a kubutz or an u sound, and a yud after every chirik, which is a dot, is an e sound, or a tzere, two dots, like an a sound. Now, if you tell me that all the additions that are made in such a case, if you count that up, you get 600,000. But again, that's a whole different way of looking at it. This would also explain Rav Yosef's statement over here that the vav in Gachon is the middle letter. If you're counting that after all the vowels which lack supplementary letters, see, it gets more complex here. But says Rav Yosef, we're not expertise in this. We don't have it. Which vowels may support an extra letter, they don't. We're not biblical geniuses. Like the great commentators. Take the Ibn Ezra, great grammarian. Take other great rabbis, great grammarians. We don't have a clue. I remember I was learning the Gemara in Sanhedrin, explaining like a lot of there's one of the commentators, a whole long discussion, about this whole thing. When you have a vav, you don't have a vav, this, that. That's my Rabbi, like, how much should I take out of this? Like, what am I supposed to get out of this? He says, get whatever you get out of it, learn it for a little bit, and whatever you take from it, you take from it, right? Because again, we don't, as he said, and others echo the same thing, we don't know how to spell. We don't know how to learn psukim very well. We don't know how to learn verses very well, at all, right? Why do you think the Christians have such problems? They can't even read Hebrew, right? They just, dissect the text in totally wrong way, right? But we don't know how to learn. We don't know how to learn these verses. If we wouldn't have a running commentary, we wouldn't know anything. We know any of these verses, what they mean. Now, according to this, just, we'll flush this question out. According to these answers, what do I have? What was Rav Yosef worried about? Right? Counting what is not written in the Sefer Torah itself. So therefore, he had doubts, had no bearing on what's written in the Torah. Doesn't change anything written in the Torah, right? The question is, okay, how many letters are there? That's a big discrepancy. That's a huge discrepancy, right? Depends how you're counting, where you're counting from, what, are letters lacking, etc. So there are other answers, potentially answers as well. But there's another possible answer here, and that is the vav of Gachon in the question of the Zohar. Yeah, you got 300,000 missing letters. That's a big problem. What do you do with 300,000 missing letters? So it's an accepted tradition to leave a blank space of the width of 9 letters, just in case anyone wants to know, at the beginning of every new parsha in the Sefer Torah. Right? That's what the Rambam says. Laws of Sefer Torah, chapter 8, halacha 1, that you leave a blank space, the width of 9 letters, at the beginning of every new parsha. For every new Torah portion of the week, you leave a space of 9 letters. Right? Comes on Yosef Karo, blessed memory in the Shulchan Aruch, in his commentary in the Shulchan Aruch, Beis Yosef, and he says the letters of the Torah have different widths, and the measure of a space equal to the width of 9 letters depends on which letter. It's going to depend on which letter is used as a standard. Then tradition doesn't specify which letters width to measure. We have no idea which letter we're gonna measure according to a kuf. That would be bigger, or a yud, which would be smaller. Right? It doesn't tell me. Right? We don't know. We don't have a clear-cut tradition. The comes on the Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo says 9 was the smallest letter. What's the smallest letter? The yud. Now, if that's true, then I can understand how the vav of Gachon is the middle of the Torah, and how there are 600,000 letters in the Torah, because according to the Beis Yosef, that what an unspecified letter doesn't mean an average letter. Rather, it's the smallest letter. He's going according to the yud. Right? So in the side frame, the rabbis or the Zohar, according to Kabbalah, counted the letters of the Torah. Maybe they didn't count each character as a single letter. Maybe it was written according to the halacha with a width of 2 yuds, right, as 2 letters. Now, if you took a larger letter, right, let's say you took a resh or a shin, right, a shin's a good example. A shin would be 3 letters, because its width is as wide as 3 yuds, right? You look at 3 yuds, you look at a shin, it's as wide as that, with a bit of space that separates between the yuds at the top. Yeah. Now, if you do it that way, now you look at there are 4 letters that are 1 yud width wide: a vav, a zayin, a yud, and a final nun. Right. So if you go according to that, the count of the letters doubles. Right. Without going into the math of it, it should double. Right. It should double over there. And if you look at the end of the Torah Tamima, was great commentary on the Torah, later commentary, right, more than 100 years ago. And basically, every verse in the Torah, he brings out corresponding Gemaras, or Jerusalem Talmud, or Midrashim, and then gives his spin on why they learned it this way and not that way, or whatever. So there was the Torah Tamima say. Seems to say that you could have a lot more letters, right? So it wouldn't be so far-fetched to say 600,000, right? Even though we're not experts in the letters that either are missing or not missing, right? Or whatever. Maybe it doesn't mean that. Maybe it refers to letters which lack width, not that they're missing, right? They're lacking. What are they lacking? Not that they're not there. Maybe they lack the width, or maybe they add the width, right? So according to that, in one place maybe it's smaller, it's lacking. One place is larger, right? It's bigger. Because the aleph, let's say in the word Vayikra, the beginning of the book of Leviticus, the aleph in the word Vayikra is small, right? It's written smaller than usual. As is the yud in the word Teshin, Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 18. In the base of the first word of the Torah, Bereshis, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, it's also written larger, as is the Vav of Gachon. So when the Sofrim said the Vav of Gachon is the midpoint of the Torah, what did it mean? Maybe they meant when all the letters of the Torah are counted by their width, by the yud width of it. Then the Vav is the center. And then when the Rabbi Yosef said, we lack the expertise in the letters that are lacking or not, or whatever, maybe he meant We don't know which letters to enlarge or reduce, or how much to enlarge Sifrei Torah. Because it comes on the Rambam, and the Rambam says in the laws of Sefer Torah, chapter 6, halacha 9, that the letter is written larger or smaller than its true Masoretic size. It's good. The Torah scroll is valid. So therefore, if you count that way, then the Torah should include 600,000 letters. And that the Vav would be in the middle. Right? The Vav of Gachon would be in the middle. So that's how it comes up. Right? That's seemingly another way of looking at the subject. So what do we see? First, I'm going to say, like, okay, very good. Someone asked the question, valid question, right? Very valid question. We just we flushed it out more, right? And what the issues are. But the idea is, you see, because someone really, is an unbeliever, doesn't really care. They go, who cares? Who cares where it starts? Where the middle of the Torah is, right? Someone could ask that. They're like, come on, like you're staying up late at night worrying about this. You can't sleep because you don't know if that Vav and Gachon is the middle of the Torah or not, and there's a discrepancy. Well, that's a huge thing. It's not a small thing over here. Why is it not a small thing? Because if that's the case, depending how you're looking at it, you got a huge discrepancy. If I have a huge discrepancy, then you have to come up with some sort of explanation. Otherwise, you got a serious problem here. There's going to be a serious problem. How many letters in the Torah? All right, it's got different, a few different ways. A few different ways of looking at, of potentially answering it. But a lot of it has to do with what? Biblical exegesis. And how you learn it. Right? And then you get the Zohar. Zohar says it's 600,000 letters, corresponding 600,000 souls from all the tribes. Very good. But if that's true, and you count the letters, you get half the amount. If you count all the letters. So what's going on? So we have a few possible explanations. But you see, this is one aspect. This is one aspect. This is what learning is. Right? Good question. Valid question. Right? And if you have such a huge discrepancy, maybe throw the whole Torah out. How do you know? How do you know it can be true? There's a huge discrepancy. Yeah. That I think answers that. Somebody asked, okay, Kashrus question. If you taste and ingest something not for purpose of eating, but you enjoy the taste, do you have to worry about kashrus? Depends. Right? Toothpaste, mouthwash, chapstick, rest strip, it depends. If it's something, let's say, toothpaste is a good example. Let's say it's not flavored. Let's say it's not flavored. If it's not flavored, I don't have an issue. Right? Because what's in it? What can be in it? What can be in it that you're not going to, that you would need, you would need rabbinic supervision on. Right? Now, if Passover, so why would someone get toothpaste as rabbinic supervision? And to say there's no chametz in it. Could there be chametz in it? Yeah, we don't, during the rest of the year, we don't care. Right? We don't care. The regular toothpaste, person's meticulous to have, kashrus symbol on it. Okay, does it really need it? Probably not. Right? Because again, it's really inedible. Now, if you had flavored toothpaste is a different issue. Right? So it's a different issue. Why is it a different issue? Because it's got flavoring in it. Where does the flavoring come from? Right? If you know where it comes from, you probably wouldn't use it. But it's just like most things you eat. If you know how it's processed, you wouldn't eat it. But okay. Yeah. So what do I have? I have something that is what do you call it? Has taste to it. It's got flavor. So it needs rabbinic supervision. Right? A good example of that would be, okay, you mentioned toothpaste, chapstick, these type of things. Right? But a good example also would be, let's say, medicine. Took syrup. You took cough syrup. Now, if you take cough syrup, it tastes like turpentine. Very good. Doesn't need rabbinic supervision. If you take cough syrup that tastes good, it's got flavor, grape flavor, or usually cherry flavor or something like that, in order to get it down. So that would need rabbinic supervision. right? Because where's the flavoring coming from? Right, that would need rabbinic supervision. There's another question, just throw this out there on this topic. But you have to make a blessing on it because it tastes good. So really, you're going to say it's for the sake of medicine. But you're getting benefit from it, right? Tastes good, right? So we hold, practically speaking, you don't have to make a blessing on it, right? There's a question. There is a question whether you have to or not. So I would say, before a person takes medicine, if they could drink something, make a blessing of shako, have that in mind for the medicine, that will take care of the problem. Same thing by vitamins. Vitamins wouldn't be any different, right? Even if they don't taste like anything, right? The question is, if you take it, maybe you have to make a blessing on it, right? We all, practically speaking, probably don't. It's probably better, make a shako on something to have in mind for the vitamin that takes care of the problem, right? That would take care of the problem. But back to the example, toothpaste. So toothpaste does not have any flavor in it, does not need rabbinic supervision. Mouthwash, same thing, right? Again, unless it's flavored. If it's flavored, right, it probably needs rabbinic supervision, right? If it's not flavored, probably not a problem, right? Probably not an issue. Chapstick, breast sticks, I would say the same thing. If it's non-flavored, doesn't need rabbinic supervision. If it's flavored, even if it's just, you're sucking it or whatever, probably needs rabbinic supervision. Because again, there are other things in there, other chemicals in there that, are there for flavoring. So if it's there for taste, then it needs rabbinic supervision. If it's not for taste, right? In other words, let's say you took your normal cough drop. Normal cough drop also probably tastes like turpentine. Yeah, if it's not flavored. Yeah, if it's not flavored, good. I don't need to make a blessing on it. Most medicine, you don't need to make a blessing on it, right? Wouldn't be an issue because it's not flavored. If it is flavored, then it would need rabbinic supervision. That's what I would say on that. Somebody asked also, deal with this question. Somebody asked about non-Jews being punished for sinful thoughts. Yeah, so that's the whole question. There's the whole question if Jews are punished for sinful thoughts, even if you don't act on them. Now, by a few things, you could be. One of them is immorality. Person thinks certain things, right? Even if they don't act on it. But, let's say something immoral, they can be punished for that. Idolatry is like that. If a person in their mind would say, JC is my God, or show little fat guy, they probably won't say that, but show little fat guy, Mr. Buddha himself is my God. They don't say it out loud. They don't bow down to him. They don't, what do you call it? They don't, worship him or sacrifice him or whatever. But they say in their mind. Now, if they say in their mind, so for a Jew, they're liable. Right? They very well could be liable, right, for such a thing. But those are like the only two things. Because normally when we say words in our heart don't mean anything. Devarim shebalev eino devar really doesn't really mean a whole lot. But immoral thoughts or idolatry, even a person doesn't verbalize it, they can totally sin over here, right? Even if they don't act on it, right? So the question is, I heard once that, a non-Jew is punished for sinful thoughts. What about rewards, right? So let's say that's true. I'm not saying it is, right? That's something universal. Would a non-Jew, when we say for their bad thoughts, they should be punished. I don't know, for a Jew makes sense. For a non-Jew, no, I'm not so clear that would necessarily be forbidden. If they did the action, that would be forbidden. But let's say that would be true. Let's say that would be true, they'd be punished for their thoughts, right? So it would only be for certain thoughts anyway. But what about rewards? So why shouldn't they get, for a Jew, if they thought about doing the mitzvah, they get the reward as if they did it. Now, is that universal? Right? Is that universal? I don't know if that's universal. If you were to ask somebody, right, Jew or non-Jew, right, secular Jew or non-Jew, if you had intention to do a mitzvah, Do you get credit if you didn't do it? Right? What's the answer? They would say you didn't do it. Who cares what your thought is? You didn't do it. Right? But commentaries tell us if a person had intention to do something, i.e., a mitzvah, but they didn't do it, they get credit as if they did. But it goes the other way also. If you started a mitzvah, you didn't finish the mitzvah, you bury your wife and your kids in your lifetime. Now, why is that more severe? It's one thing you tell me you didn't start the mitzvah, you get credits because you had the right intention. But if you started the mitzvah and you didn't finish it, it's like you're saying, now again, you're not under onus. We're not talking about onus here, where it's against your will that you couldn't do it. You were lazy. I don't know. You dilly-dally, this, that. You got sidetracked. Okay. You get sidetracked. Does God want you to get sidetracked? No. So it wasn't against your will. You're saying this, however you got sidetracked, whatever you were doing, it's more important than finishing the mitzvah. God says, really? You started the mitzvah, you didn't finish it? You lazy, good for nothing, whatever? Severe punishment. If it didn't start it, it's one thing. The fact that you started, you didn't finish it, it's a different issue. Right? It's a different issue. Right? So the question, the question on the floor is that universal? Right? If a non-Jew had intention to do something, they didn't do it, they get credit for it. I don't know if they get credit for it. I wouldn't say it's, let's say, something universal. Right? In other words, you thought about doing something good. Okay. Yeah, that's worth something. I'm not gonna say not. But would they get credit as if they did it? I don't know. I don't know if that's universal. I don't know if I would say that's universal. Because if you would ask anybody that question, what are they going to tell you? You didn't do it. 100%, you didn't do it. So if you didn't do it, well, I don't care what you thought. Now, controlling your thoughts, can that make you a better person? Sure. Being in control of what we do and what we think, sure. But, the fact that you want to do something, you didn't do it, I don't know, why should you get credit for it? Right? So then they brought up a specific case. Right? I spoke about, last week about Tzar Chaim, about, making animals suffer, cruelty to animals. So the person saw a stray cat, looked pretty dehydrated, went to get water. By the time he came back, cat was already dead. Yeah. Now, did they get married for trying to help the cat? Why not? They had the right intention. They definitely had the right intention. Okay, the cat died. They didn't get them quick enough. There's a story the Gemara says somebody was sick and they needed something. I don't know if it was water or something else. And the person wanted to help out, but by the time the person got to him, the person died. Right? So the whole question is, that person liable? Were they liable? They said, what could they have done? They did what they could have done, maybe. If they would have ran faster, got them this, maybe it would have happened. Right? So the person says, I feel like they did the right thing. Right? The person just walked away and said, okay, the cat will die, so not my problem. Right? You get any credits or any merit for trying? I don't see why not. Why shouldn't you get credit? Right? Even, you did what you could do. The cat died. Right? You tried to help, so he had good intention. Good intention is worth something. It's definitely worth. This is an action. This is a different issue. The person set out to do the right thing. Right? That was the right thing, trying to help the cat. Now, do you have an obligation? I don't think so. I don't have an obligation, but okay. Want to try and help this cat. Very good. The cat died. Right? You had a good intention. You should get credit for good intention. Right? Would you get reward for that effort? I don't see why not, even though the results weren't what you wanted. What they say here, you can say it anywhere, pretty much, so surgery was successful, but the patient died. So a person can try this and that, and and let's say person died, the animal died. You did what you could do, right? But it wasn't meant to be. Now the question is, if you see the animal died and the person died, let's say better the person died, you gotta say, well, I should try and save him. The person's gonna die anyway. You didn't know that. You had no idea. You did what you could. You do exactly what you can do. So you should get credit for that. I don't see why you shouldn't get credit for that. Right here, the person says also that that the rabbi showed a lot of compassion, for animals. Some were held accountable for not showing enough mercy to animals. True, right? That is true, right? So yeah, person in this case, I would say they did the right thing, even though they didn't get the end result that they wanted, i.e., helping save the cat. I get it, right? But that doesn't mean they shouldn't get credit for it. But if they're doing something, they're thinking about something, thinking about doing the right thing, is that the same thing as getting credit if you did it? I don't know we go that far. I don't know we go that far by a non-Jew. It's a big novelty to say by a Jew that would be the case. Why? Because you didn't do the action. You thought to do it. Okay. Good thoughts are good thoughts. I get it. Very good. But you didn't do it. It's like someone, calls up my Rabbi and said, by 9/11, it's supposed to be the World Trade Center. Got delayed, didn't get there, right? So basically, we're saved. So he says, I want to bench Goldman, and I want to make the blessing of being saved from a dangerous situation, right? So my Rabbi asked him, "Were you there? Did you escape?" He said, "No, I could have been there, but this happened, that happened." So my Rabbi asked him again, "Were you there at the time it happened?" Answer, no. So if you weren't there, can't make the blessing, right? But again, there's a different case. There's a different case. I would ask the question like this: why would a Jew get merit for that? Why? Because the Jew thinks about doing the mitzvah, they get credit if they did it. Why should they get credit? They didn't do it. Yeah. So God goes according to what your intention is. You couldn't do it for whatever reason, right? Not that you didn't want to do it, but whatever. You didn't do it. Do we go that far to a non-Jew? I don't know. I don't know if we go that far. It's a huge novelty to say it by a Jew, for sure. Most people would say you didn't do it. You didn't do it. Why'd you get credit? You had good thoughts. Very good. You had good thoughts. Okay. That's worth something, but getting credit for doing something, you didn't do it. You didn't do it. Yeah, somebody asks, I think it sounds the same when we speak it out loud. There's really no difference. Oh, it's huge difference. Huge difference. What's the difference? Person thinks something. They can think in their mind, God's in charge. And God runs the world. Yeah? There's a difference, though, if you say it out loud. It's good if you think it, no question. Why is it better if you say it out loud? Either people are going to think you're funny. Look at you funny, saying, God is great, God is awesome, look at all the good things he does, and everything else. Why? Why is that better than just thinking it? Thinking it, you get credit. Not saying not. You get credit. 100%. You get credit for thinking it. Why is it better to verbalize it? Because it has an effect on the person. Because when you hear it once, twice, 3 times, 5 times, it affects the soul by saying it. Thinking it has an effect. I'm not going to say not. It has an effect. It's not the same as if you heard it with your own ears by saying it. When a person says it, they get accustomed to saying it more. When they get accustomed to saying it more, they understand more what they're saying, not just by saying the words. Right? Or the question is, are we required to speak out loud with intention and think with intention? Again, intention is not an easy thing to have, but that's why there are mitzvahs that a person will do they'll say right before they do it, I have intention for this or for that. Like, someone wants to do something for the soul of their, parent that died. So they say, I'm going to make this blessing over this apple and the merit of, my father, my mother, or, whoever. They should get, merit from this blessing. Or like in the Haggadah, 4 different parts of the Haggadah, it's brought down. Not everyone says it, but it should be almost in every Haggadah. We say, Hinene muchan mezumah. Here I am prepared to fulfill this command of whatever. When a person says it like that, it's not just saying you're saying the words. You have intention of what you're doing. Right? You think about what you're doing. Right? So when a person says something, it has more of an effect. It has much more of an effect than if you think it. Thinking it's good. We got to change the way we think. That's part of my job. Get people to change the way they think about the world and the way the Torah wants us to think and the way the Torah wants us to live. Not an easy thing to do. Right? But we got to change our mentality. That's what we have to do. That's our obligation. So someone says, we're around someone who speaks disgusting things. How can I not hear it or deal with it? Sometimes you have no choice. Sometimes you end up hearing it. But what can you say to yourself? Oh, I can't believe this person said that. I can't believe how disgusting this person is. And you say, thank God I'm not going in that path. Thank God, I want to go in the right way. There's a different issue, though. What if a person, what if you're around people speak Lashon Hara? I get this question all the time. Person's at work, people speak Lashon Hara like no tomorrow. Forget about cursing. Cursing is another issue. Right? Now, Lashon Hara is a different issue, right? Especially if you're a Jew, because you can't believe it. Right? You're not allowed to believe it. Now, if it's something that could damage you, you can guard yourself against it, but you can't believe it 100%. Because if you believe it 100%, you get more than 30 prohibitions, right, of hearing Lashon Hara. You can say, but I never intention to hear it, right? You're around people that speak Lashon Hara, okay, right? They could be Orthodox Jews speaking about Lashon Hara. Doesn't mean secular Jews. They could also be speaking Lashon Hara, right? Very good. You can say, but I didn't want to hear that. Very good. So you're not allowed to believe it. You got to work like a dog not to believe it. You can have doubts, but you can't believe it 100%. This comes up all the time. What people speak about and how they speak. Can't even tell you, on a regular basis, people ask me this question. I work with people that curse like no tomorrow. Yeah. So I would say, if you get a job, you can put in earbuds, listen to something, you don't have to hear what people say. Right? But sometimes, that's not enough. People just talk and you hear it. Right? I would tell you one thing. One thing is that you can be thankful, and you can thank God and say a prayer and say, thank you for allowing me to go in this path. Thank you that I'm not going to be like everybody else. Even if you heard what they said and whatever, a whole bunch of people curse, this, that, and the other thing. Okay. But you have to have a mentality that look at what these people are. They don't care what they say. They don't care they belittle people. They don't care this. You're created differently. You're going in a different path, a better path. No question. All right, that should be the mentality. Somebody asks, is it advisable for converts to marry someone from a similar background? No, not necessarily. Somebody, let's say it's about tshuva, returning to Judaism. Someone who's, let's say a secular Jew became religious, right? Or a convert. Does the background really matter? Right? Does the background really matter? Since they're religious, I would say like this. People have gone through certain struggles and certain things probably are going to relate to people better who probably gone through similar things. Someone who grew up religious, totally religious, born religious, very strong, so to speak, they're not necessarily going to relate to someone, whose parents eat shrimp. Or, family members, aren't religious or whatever. Unless either they've gone through certain things or they've seen other people gone through certain things. And to them, that doesn't matter. Right? So coming from a similar background, I think helps. I think it helps a lot because you can relate to each other in a much better way. Coming from a similar background. But doesn't necessarily have to be. But I will say, not every FFB, what we call someone who's from birth, who's religious, from birth, will necessarily be interested, in marrying either a convert or, Baal Tshuva, right? If someone comes back to Judaism, because too much baggage, too many different things. Why, why would they? I'm not even talking about their pedigree. Forget about their pedigree. Because I would marry a convert? My pedigree? Why would I marry a convert? But convert could be at a very high level, and this and that. True. Now, some people won't care. Some people won't bother them at all. Some people would. Now, again, but what's the real issue? Right? The real issue is where the person came from. What do they bring to the table? Do they have the same values? Can they relate? Right? How are they going to relate to each other? Someone who's never gone through certain things is going to have a hard time relating to someone who didn't. Right? And someone whose siblings are all religious, the relatives are all religious, let's say. They're going to take someone who came from who knows what? I mean, it makes sense. You want to be around people more like yourself. But if a person grew up more open, and let's say they had siblings that either went off or, maybe, God forbid, intermarried or other things, it's okay. They're used to certain things. They've seen certain things. So that's not so uncommon. But for someone who never experienced it and doesn't really have a connection to it, why would they do it? Again, it's not discrimination. Some people may think it is, but it's not discrimination because you have less in common. You gotta say, what do you mean? I'm an Orthodox Jew. I want to commit to learning. I want this. I want that. But you come from different worlds, totally different worlds. Now, does that mean it can't work out that way? I'm not saying not. Definitely not saying not. Doesn't mean a convert has to marry a convert. Doesn't mean that, right? That person will marry somebody either similar to them or someone who's much more open, right? In other words, because of what they went through in life, they're more open to these things. There are other people totally closed. They would never marry outside their own circles, right? There are some people very stringent. They want 3 generations. They'll have their kids married into a family that have 3 generations of generation after generation that kept family purity laws. Yeah, we call it the family purity laws. They won't marry into my family. That's for sure. I've heard great rabbis say that doesn't mean anything. Totally doesn't mean anything, because even if someone, came from, from a union where the parents didn't practice family purity laws, they could still be at a very high level. Right? Mary came with somebody to the Chazon Ish, right? And this guy, was interested in a certain woman, but her parents weren't religious. So she was a bas nida. She was, parents didn't practice family purity laws. So anyway, there are certain repercussions, certain character traits may come out of it, whatever it may be. So they asked the Chazon Ish, Rabbi Avram Yishai Karo, to bless the memory, Torah giants, the last generation, according to everyone, what should we do? What should we do in such a case? Is it worthwhile to even look into it? So he said, if this person's going in the right path, they want to grow in Torah mitzvahs, absolutely nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Now again, some people would say, why do that? Right? I'll ask better. Would a person consider marrying someone who has an insulin pump? They have an issue, diabetes. Yeah. Comes from a nice family, beautiful family. But they have an insulin pump. Or they have other medical issues. But there's nothing wrong otherwise with the person or the family. What would somebody say? Some people would say, diabetes is a serious thing. You don't take care of it. Could kill you for sure. But if it's being taken care of already, and they have this pump or whatever, the person could say, I don't want to start out marriage like that. Why should I start out marriage with someone who's got a medical issue? Or somebody, let's say, had cancer. They overcame it. You have to say at some point when they're going out that that's what the person had. You don't say at the beginning because otherwise the person will never go out with anybody, right? No one will ever go out with them, right? We have somebody we know that has Crohn's disease, but family's beautiful family. Know them for many years. They didn't say at the very beginning the person had Crohn's disease. Yeah, after the third date, I think third or fourth date, they had to make it known. Then they checked out the medical history, the other side. They, called this doctor and this and that. Been married for a number of years, very happy. Right? Now, someone could say, why should I take someone who's got an issue? Forget convert. I'm talking medical issues. Convert makes it a little more difficult, a little more dicey, so to speak. Right? A little more dodgy, maybe, as the English would say. Right? I love that word, dodgy. Anyway, I digress here. What's the point? What's the point? Medical issues is a serious thing. Mental health issue, serious thing. When a person marries someone or go out with someone, they know they had certain mental health issues, but they've overcome them or whatever. Right? So we'll get to your simple case. Does a person, a convert, have to marry someone who's a convert or about you? I would say no. But you want to marry somebody or look for someone who's going to understand where you're coming from. Now, someone who grew up religious may not understand where you're coming from unless they themselves had struggles. They had certain struggles. Yeah? Sometimes people look for a needle in a haystack. You can have somebody, let's say, a woman, let's say, dresses, let's say, a little more modern, right? Skirts a little bit short and whatever, let's say. But philosophically, they're an ultra-Orthodox Jew across the board. They pray, they keep Shabbos and whatever. They have an issue with modesty, right? They may have an issue with modesty a little bit, but there's nothing wrong with them otherwise. If they would dress like every other ultra-Orthodox woman, you wouldn't even think anything twice. But the fact they dress a little bit more modern, different things. Who are they going to find? Who are they going to meet? Someone who's really strong or whatever. They don't want somebody like that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, even though there might be modesty issues. Okay. But otherwise, philosophically, they're holding like anybody else. Maybe stronger than most people. Okay. But they have an issue with dress. Now, if someone was like really, really strong philosophically, religiously, and all that, are they going to marry someone like that? No. Unless they themselves struggle with it or whatever, right? But I'm not saying you're looking for a needle in the haystack, but you have to look for someone, someone very specific, because not everyone's going to meet that criteria. Now, does that mean you can't find someone else? Doesn't mean that. But you have to be on the same wavelength, right? Again, if someone is more open, grew up religious, but they're more open, had different struggles, yeah, would they be more open to marrying a convert or about tshuva? Yes. But if they didn't have those struggles and are very strong, why would they do it? They wouldn't necessarily do it. They don't have any reason to do it. Say, wow, the convert second class citizen, there's baggage. There's family baggage. If you don't see the in-laws that much, this and that, whatever, there's baggage. 100%. Makes sense. I'm not talking, forget about pedigree. I'm not talking about pedigree. Yeah, and some people marry, they have all kinds of problems from their in-laws, right? Either side. Said if you would have known that, would you have signed up for it? Probably anyway. Yeah, it depends on how bad it is. Right? But again, you marry a whole package. You don't just marry the person. You marry the whole package. Family, siblings. Right? It's not so simple. Right? It's not so simple. Someone coming out from left field is not gonna, is not gonna fit in a normal ultra-Orthodox community. Or family. Depends. If they're very strong and they've left everything behind and don't have so much contact with family and this and that, and they could fit in 100%, that type of community, these type of people, okay. Right? Then there's no difference. Right? But, it depends on the person. It's got to take time to get there also. So if someone's like way above here, someone, is holding it in a different place, it causes problems. It definitely cause problems. Right? If someone's becoming religious, becoming strong and this and that, but you're already at a different level, how do you know it's going to work? How do you know they're not going to flake out? It's a good question. Take a chance. It is a risk. It's a definite risk. Right? But again, simple, long answer is, is it advisable to marry someone from that background? You can marry anyone. No one's saying give, a woman wouldn't be able to marry a convert, a Kohen, but you know, you want to marry somebody who you have more in common with. If you grew up a certain way, similar way, this, that, then it makes more sense. If a person holding, much stronger, then the other thing shouldn't matter. But the whole package, you're getting a whole package. Both sides are getting a whole package. Someone can say, what do I want to start with that for? Start with their family, start with this. It's a whole package. Then how much contact they have, and whatever. It's complicated. It's complicated. It doesn't have to be. But, I would say you want to be with somebody that's more like you. Does that mean it has to be a convert? No. Doesn't mean that. But someone who understands where you're coming from. Right? That's what I would say. Yeah, other questions. Boy, guys, keep me on my toes here. Yeah, any other questions? So the question was, the last part of the question was, does the background of the person really matter? Yes, it does. Because there were certain things the person who's gone through, they said, I don't want to deal with that. Even the person went through it. They overcame it, whatever, but they don't want to deal with it. Makes sense? Right? It's not discrimination, it's compatibility. What if each spouse is holding on different levels? That's the problem. Then you got to see. There was a famous story, Rabbi Ori Zohar, blessed memory. The famous Israeli actor became religious. His wife wanted nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. Now what does he do? She won't go to the mikveh, right? Can't be intimate. She wanted nothing to do with it. As Rabbi said, you give her some time. Give her some time. Right? You don't just, he said, do I have to get divorced? So they said, this Rabbi gave him a lot of good advice. Rabbi Zilberman, a blessed memory. And he's the one that got him to become religious. And he said, don't get divorced straight away. Give her some time. Right? I don't know exactly what the time frame was, but it's a great book. It's called My Friends We've Been Robbed. Right? I just put it out here because it's a very good book in English about his life story. I'll write it down here by Zohar. My friends, we have been robbed. It's a great book. So the advice he got was that he shouldn't get divorced, and his wife came around. And his wife ended up coming around, and and he just sat and learned until finally, he was told he's got to go out and start doing outreach, etc. But it depends. It depends how far it goes. If they're holding on different levels, if one is holding at a lower level and they just they want out, or they want to do other things, then you can see how it's going to affect. I wouldn't say it's automatic case for divorce. You can go that far. It depends. Depends on the situation. There are cases though a person will have to get divorced. Right? It doesn't necessarily have to come to that, but there are certain red lines. There are definitely certain red lines. And certain red lines you can't pass. So the question is, is it negotiable? Is it doable, or it's not doable? And if it's not doable, then you gotta make a decision what you're gonna do. A good example, let's say, the woman refuses to go to the mikveh. He says, I'm not, I'm not doing this. I'm not gonna do it. So he's got a problem. Can't be with her. She doesn't go to the mikveh. Even if she doesn't get a period, let's say she's older, it doesn't matter. At some point, she has to go to the mikveh. She doesn't go. Can't be with it. That's going to cause a strain in a marriage. Serious strain in a marriage. So you'd have to make a decision. Can't live that way. She says, I'll never do it, whatever. She has no problem being intimate, whatever, but she's not doing that. That's a problem. All right, that has to be dealt with. But, other things are not necessarily as dramatic. Depends what it is. If one of the spouses doesn't want to keep Shabbos, wants to go shopping and this and that, saying they're Jews, a problem. That is a serious problem. What are you going to do? So they have to be done with the individual case, but it doesn't mean it can't be overcomable. It doesn't mean that a person has to get divorced. It depends. It depends. They can make a compromise here and there, whatever. And they can live together amicably. Good. If not, they might have to get divorced. Right? It's never good. Somebody asks, when choosing priorities improving mitzvah practice, should criteria be based on psychological terms, right? In other words, take on a mitzvah that depresses you. I would say, whenever a person's taking on something to do that you're obligated to do things you like first. The things you enjoy first and get used to doing that. And then things that are more difficult will probably come easier. Right? In other words, you're going to have to start doing whatever you need to do anyway. Right? But things that are much harder, I wouldn't say try and nip it in the bud and try just do it and force it. I wouldn't do that. Right? But, learn about it more. Things that are more difficult, I would say learn more about it. Learn more about what the mitzvah is, what it represents. Yeah. If that doesn't work, continue to learn about it, and push it off until you feel comfortable doing it. Right? That's what I would say. There are people that say women, say they're married, have difficulty covering their hair. Yeah. Which, they're obligated to cover. So let's say in their house, there's nobody around, shades are down, she can walk around without her hair uncovered. Unless there are people around that she needs to cover her hair. Things can be done in stages. Doesn't have to be done all at once. But, things that are especially hard, I would say, just, simply, I would say, you're better off trying to learn about it as much as possible. And then, see what really bothers you, learn about it. And if it still really bothers you, then either ask someone or figure out a way that you're going to be able to do it. Some things we do, some things not. Right? But I would say that even if it's hard, when a person understands the bigger picture, eventually it should get easy if you're doing other things. Does the married woman have to cover her hair in front of her children? No. Technically, she doesn't. I mean, the Gemara does say, there were women that were praised because 4 walls of her house never saw her hair uncovered. Her hair was always covered. But, does she have to cover in front of her kids? No. No obligation. Other people that are, she has to cover hair, but for her kids, no. Any other questions? All right, if there are no other questions, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. There I got Q&As, Ethics of Our Fathers, for a portion of the week, even though I'm very behind. Book of Leviticus, you want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN@gmail.com. Wishing everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day, end of the day, depending where you